Welcome to the Evolution Partners podcast, where I talk with the world's leading thinkers, planners, and doers who are helping to build great companies in their own way. We learn how the work they're doing is creating an impact and get to know a little bit more about them and what makes them tick. This episode is brought to you by Evolution Partners, where we help leaders to confidently build enduring great companies using our proven, structured, strategic planning process that ensures you build and execute the right plan. Check us out at evolutionpartners.com.au. Also, you can check out our books, Made to Thrive, outlining how to be a great CEO, as well as Onboarded, which is about making your new hires more effective faster. Danielle Mulvey is a thinker and a doer. She's built and scaled multiple businesses, generating more than $50 million annually, while working only around 10 hours a week, thanks to the power of what she calls 5-star employees. Danielle is the co-author of All In with Mike Michalowicz, a book that shows leaders how to build dream teams who think and act like owners. She's also the author of HR Magic, an upcoming book about how to build your dream team. As well, she is the creator of the 5-star employee hiring system and hosts the Profit First Nation podcast, helping entrepreneurs and business owners to put these principles into action. Through her own experience, Danielle learned how the wrong hire can turn a company toxic and how the right team can transform everything. Today, she helps leaders apply proven systems to attract, hire, and keep the top 15% of talent who drive extraordinary results. Danielle, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Brad. Excited to be chatting with you today.
And me as well. Perhaps you could begin beyond quite a few accomplishments there, but beyond that, the introduction that I've provided, by telling us a little bit more about your career and how you came to be doing what you're doing today.
I started my first company rather young, at the ripe old age of 25, and my sort of hiring was anecdotal at that time. I thought, okay, well, I'm young and I don't know what I'm doing, so I'll hire people younger than me, and they won't know that I don't know what I'm doing and such. So, I was kind of just going off of, hey, can you start on Monday? Going off of referrals. And I had one employee who was, I refer to now as Larry. And, I thought he checked the right boxes. He was the brother of a college friend of mine. He graduated from the same degree program as one of my best employees. He was a fraternity brother of someone else I know. I thought okay, he must be like us and fit in. And he was not. And he made me want to call in fake sick to my own company. And that's when I realized I can't wing it anymore when it comes to hiring. I really had to dive in and figure this out. And so, that kind of was my driving force and has enabled me to have multiple businesses simultaneously, because I have teams of 5-star employees that really do the work better than I could in the businesses.
Well, that's really interesting. Oftentimes, what seems to be the worst thing at the time that could happen ultimately can turn out to be the best thing. And I know that Larry he's, I guess in his own way, been a really important part of your life. So maybe you could tell us the story about Larry and how it completely changed the way that you look at hiring.
Yeah. I get a little PTSD actually when I have to, channel back to Larry and such, because I remember, he was our 7th employee. He was my 7th employee. So, I'd been pretty lucky up until then. And we had a great small team and clients who loved us. And, we could nail it on the first batch with the client. We were an advertising and marketing firm and such. And Larry just came in fresh with a freshly minted degree, thinking he knew everything about graphic design. And it was like a fight if a client would ask for a change and he disagreed with it. And it's like, you don't disagree with a client.
Yeah.
when they're asking for certain things and such. And I distinctly remember waking up one Monday morning, and I used to love Monday mornings because I was reunited with my team. But this Monday morning, I woke up, buried my head underneath my pillow and said, can I call in fake sick to my own company? Because I didn't want to face another week with Larry. And I knew my team also didn't want to face another week with Larry. So, that morning I didn't call in fake sick. I resolved myself to take three immediate actions. Number one, I decided Larry was going to get moved to alumni status ASAP, which means he was going to be free to pursue another job. The second thing was that I was going to stop winging it when it came to my hiring. And number three was that I was going to set the bar of like, this is what I need, and I'm not going to settle for anything less than where I set the bar. So that was really the transformative moment in my business. And from that point on, so that was about um, probably a couple years into the business. So that was about 19, or excuse me, that was about the year 2000, 2001. And so
Yeah.
for the last 25 years, I've really just dedicated, my own experiments. And now in the last 5 years, I have started, because by demand of clients and other people, started, delivering this system and helping other people implement it in their companies.
Wonderful. I mean, I imagine it'd be pretty common. I mean, people or entrepreneurs, leaders putting up with toxic employees because it's too hard to exit them. I mean, you must come across this a lot. I certainly do.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I'm helping someone, a new client right now. That is, it's funny, but they've been hemming and hawing about this person forever, and they finally are like, okay, we've got to pull the plug on them, and so they've hired us to help them rebuild their team and their organization by letting this key leader go. And we're T minus 2 days from executing this, and they're sort of like getting nervous about it, and it's just sort of like, oh my gosh. I mean, when I walked into their facility, I was just shocked. I mean, it was preschool or nursery school, and it was completely disgusting and gross and unhygienic, and just I was like, I can't believe this is a question, and I can't believe that you've put up with this for so long. So it is kind of funny how sometimes people just, I feel like sometimes they'd rather know the devil they know than, risk getting someone who's
Yeah.
worse. But I've only ever seen things get better.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, too, the person that you let go who's not doing a great job, newsflash, they don't really like their job. That's why they're not doing a great job.
Yeah.
They're procrastinating because they don't enjoy the work. If you have someone who's a 5-star fit who really enjoys the work, they're not going to procrastinate. They're going to come in and do the work because we are sort of secretly programmed to do our best with the gifts that we have. And when we have a role where we are having that magic of being able to do a job, leveraging our gifts and our passions, that's where the real magic is. That's where
Yeah.
you've got that 5-star employee because they're an ideal fit for the role. It's a round peg fitting into a round hole, not
Yeah.
trying to fit a square peg into a round hole role.
Why do you think that entrepreneurs put up with it for so long? I suspect, or I would say anecdotally, that it's my observation and experience that people put up with it, put up with it, put up with it, not only about one employee, but the general concept of toxicity being permissible, even subconsciously in the workplace, until one day there's like your Larry moment, a catalyzing event where it's like, never again, never, ever, ever again are we going to tolerate that. Why do you think that people put up with it?
Well, I think that there's other pain in the business. And so
Yeah.
you tend to only like focus on the most painful thing in the business. So for some people, it might be sales is the most painful thing. Marketing might be the most painful thing. That's what they think is the most painful thing. So for the nursery school that I'm talking about, the pain for them is that they've been losing money for over a year, and they're not getting, you have a maximum enrollment in a nursery school. And so they're at about 60% when they need to be at 100%. And they're doing tours, but no one's signing up. Well, walk into the school and you see why no one's signing up and such. So it's like it's finally the pain of the fact that they're losing money under this director who's just gotten real lazy over the years and isn't taking care of the school and is making people that are interested in enrolling like run the other way and
Yeah.
not enroll. So it's like where it's like what triggers the pain, and then you kind of source it back to, oh, this is the problem. It's this person. And so some people like try to decide it's something else. And I also think too that there's sort of a lot of guilt that owners and leaders have sometimes, because number one, they feel responsible because they're the one that hired that person.
Yeah.
So, it kind of, people think it sucks to let someone go, but when you let someone go, no one ends up worse. They actually end up better, right? I mean, we've all had jobs. None of us have had just one job in our life. I mean, even if you go back to, your early education days and such, I mean, you had a job.
Yeah.
Maybe it was working in a restaurant or something, and everyone has moved on to something better. You don't move on to something worse. So when you let someone go, it's a good thing, because now you're letting them find an opportunity where they can actually use their gifts, where they're actually happier. And the employees too tend to just be satisfied with collecting a paycheck, whether they're miserable or not. And so if you're a real leader, you are going to make sure that you've got people who love what they're doing and are doing it well in your team, and let those other people find other roles where they can do well. And that's really being a leader. And so you've got to step up and be a leader, and it's okay to have expectations of employees that you might not have of yourself. As especially a business owner, you are like doing a million things. You're working in your mind 24/7 and such. And so you can have different expectations of your employees than you, because you're not doing their job. That's why
Yeah.
you hired them, to do that job. And so just because you're expecting them to do X, Y, Z, even though you wouldn't love doing Y and Z, that's okay. Like, let that go, because that's why you need employees to do X, Y, Z, because you aren't the best person to do Y and Z. Don't So it's okay to hold someone to higher Y and Z expectations. Does that make sense?
It does, and it really enables us to flip the coin now and to say, well, if that outlines toxicity, what is a five-star employee? You've coined this phrase for five-star employee. So if you could describe that, and why is finding five-star employees so critical for a company's success, do you think?
Yeah. So the five-star employees, I mean, there's five criteria. There's 5 stars that make up a five-star employee. Number one, they're aligned with your 100% true core values, not aspirational or accidental values or groupthink values. But if you want people to think and act like you need people who share that DNA of your true core values, because that's how you'll get people to think and act like you, if they already are wired that way. When you think about relationships, even friendships that kind of have just, fallen off and such, most likely they fell off because it just kind of came to the point of like, you know what, we're just not really aligned in our values. And so I just need to move on from this person. And the same thing is with employees. So you want to have your core values, your 100% true core values, only 3 to 5, with clarifying statements in your job posting. And that's going to attract that person that thinks and acts like you, because there's finally going to be a connection. Most job posts are just vanilla and blah, 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 and they
Yeah.
don't really say anything.
Yeah.
So if you can start standing out in your job post, you'll stop the scroll and you'll attract that high achiever. The second star is the 11 universal qualities of a five-star employee. So we've identified 11 universal qualities, and you need someone to impress you on each of the 11 universal qualities depending upon the role. And so you're going to need different things. So I won't go through them all, but if you'd like the litmus test for the 11 universal qualities, where you can kind of do a 1-minute gauge of your employees against the 11 universal qualities, you can text team to 55444. Again, that's team to 55444. And so 3 of the qualities on that 11 qualities are limber, listen, and learn. You need employees, especially if you're a small business, to be limber. And we're not talking flexible. Limber is, you might need different limberness depending upon the role, but, as a small business, we're needing to change things and such often. And so you need someone who can roll with the punches and who can adapt and change to what you need. And you also need someone who can listen, right? And
Yeah.
listen with all the senses. The interesting thing about that is if you discover someone in your interviewing process who is not limber and or they don't listen, those are huge red flags because those are two of the 11 universal qualities. There's only two that are coded red, and
Yep.
these ones mean that they're impossible to change. So if you I've had people that I've asked questions to who have failed to answer the question. So I ask another question and they're still like answering, but not answering the specific
They're not
question
listening.
and they're not listening. So I
Yeah.
end the interview right there. I don't try to make it work. That would be trying to make a square peg fit into a round hole. There's jobs out there for them where you don't have to listen to the degree that I need someone to listen.
Yeah.
So and then that third quality I mentioned is learn, and that one's coded green. And so one thing that leaders really need to remember about their organizations and their teams is that learning is coded green because that's relatively easy to change. So, as an owner and an entrepreneur, we're exposed to so much learning. I mean,
Yeah.
like we are suckers labeled on social media and stuff, and we get so many emails and things like that, and we just like consume, 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 consume. But what we see and the opportunities that we have to learn are not in the same feeds as our employees.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's our job as a leader to help our guide and lead our employees down a path of development, down a path of learning. And it can be as simple as sharing a podcast, sharing a chapter in a book, sharing an article, sharing a marketing email that you got that you thought was kind of interesting or cool and such. But putting out those breadcrumbs for your team to pick up as a leader is really important. So those are two. You want to
Yep.
dive into number three?
Yeah. So we're going through the 5 stars, the
Yes.
5 points of the 5 stars of the 5-star employee. Yes. Number
Yes.
3.
So number three are the aptitudes and skills for the role. So you need to really get serious about, what kind of aptitudes and what kind of skills do you need this person to have in the role? And then you need to test. You need to have people demonstrate their ability to have that aptitude or their ability to perform the skills necessary on the job.
Yep.
Too many businesses fail to have people demonstrate their abilities.
Yeah.
Giving them skills tests and this, that, the other. So in your hiring gauntlet, the steps you take people through in your hiring process, you want to create opportunities where you're testing people. I can't tell you how many accounting firms we've worked with that when we started working with them, they never tested anyone who applied for a bookkeeper position. They just hired people who said they were bookkeepers. And then they wondered why this person isn't really working out. It's because they called themselves a bookkeeper. They really didn't have the skills of a bookkeeper.
Yeah.
So now that they've implemented skills testing on the front end, they don't even talk to someone unless they've passed that skills test. And now, okay, here's a qualified candidate. They actually passed the bookkeeping test.
I saw a study out of the UK, I think it was, and they demonstrated that the highest correlation with success was actually on the job experience. In other words, maybe not experience, but on the job trials. So if you were able to go in and test the person, this is what it looks like to do the job. How well are they doing the job? That is to your point, that is the greatest likelihood of success of someone in the role.
Yeah, so definitely, I mentioned briefly a hiring gauntlet, and to kind of just take us off a little bit, and then we'll get back to the five star criteria of a 5-star employee. Your hiring gauntlet needs to be like multiple steps. So when I hired Larry, it was just sort of like I get to know you, meet you. Oh, you have a pulse. You can start on Monday. Great, you're hired.
Yeah.
And I didn't take him through a hiring gauntlet. And so, you're hiring one person. So you should get at least, we say that 1 out of 7 applicants is a potential 5-star fit for the role. So that would be the top 15%. So you
Yeah.
need 21 applicants minimum to have 3 potential 5-star candidates. And you are taking people through the process and you are filtering out the people that are just falling below the bar. And that's okay. That's what we
Yeah.
want. And so you're going to we like to start with an assessment. Then if the assessment scores against the benchmark for the role, you move on to the screening interview. From the screening interview, you do a skills testing. And then from the skills testing, you have a deep dive interview. And after the deep dive interview, you have just what you described, a test drive day where you put them into the role for the day. Some of our members put their finalists into the role for a week to really let them test out the role. And it goes both ways. Like,
Mm.
now that the candidate really gets to see, okay, they say they're great, but they get to go under the hood and see, are you really great? Do you guys really get along? And is this as wonderful of a place as you've maybe described it and talked about it? Because that's really important too. That it's a great fit for the employee just as much as it is for the employer. So you're right. Test drive days and finding opportunities to, you know, can they hit the ground running? Can they do these things? Really make sure that, like, and as you've, pointed out, in all of your writings and such too, a great hire should hit the ground running,
Yeah.
and they should be onboarded and implemented and brought up to speed rather quickly. You don't need to give someone 90 days to figure it out.
And so let's look at number 4.
Okay. And then number 4, you're going to want to quantify the success metrics for what you need the person to do. So what are the 3 to 5 key responsibilities for the role? And then what are the success metrics for each of the responsibilities? So for example, one of my companies, I have people that process long-term care claims, and the success metrics for that are 42 claims per day on average over the course of a month, with 98% procedural accuracy and 98% financial accuracy. That's where the bar is.
Yeah.
So, if you can't meet the bar, then this isn't the job for you. And what's cool about this is when you quantify success, a 5-star candidate loves it because they're like, great, I can do it. And they can self-manage themselves.
Yeah.
Too often companies, say, again, with their vanilla job posts and job descriptions, it's vague. And so, the leader or the manager has this thought of what success looks like, and the employee has this thought what success looks like, and they're two different
Yeah.
planes. So it's
It's got to be
important that,
aligned. Yeah.
yeah, so that and again, you're testing, do they have the potential to hit those success metrics through your hiring gauntlet? And then the final one is that you want to make sure that they are going to produce a 3.5x return on their salary or their payroll. So you want to make sure that what you're paying them to do is going to have a positive impact on revenue in the company. They're good. That means they're doing the right things to have that positive impact on revenue. Too often people think, oh, well, if I give them a generous raise, that will improve performance. And it doesn't improve performance. It doesn't have that positive impact on revenue. So you have to be really careful about that as well.
And so that's you're gauging that effects on revenue, is that right?
On real revenue. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Awesome. So they've got to provide financial return.
Yeah. So if they're making 50,000 annually, then they need to be producing 175,000 positive impact towards revenue.
Yep. Awesome. It kind of captures most things, and I think it's pretty easy to understand, which is everything to a degree. And it kind of captures most things. How do you, within the philosophy of that 5-star mindset or that 5-star employee, how do you reject or repel the 1 or 2 stars, the people who aren't there?
So by getting very specific in your job posts. So as I mentioned, when you share your core values with clarifying statements, that's going to attract that person that shares those and is aligned with those core values. And it's going to likely repel the person that isn't so interested. When you quantify what success looks like for the role with a dollar sign, a percentage, a deadline, a number, etc., then again, that's going to attract the high achiever and it repel the person who's like,
Yeah.
I'm just comfortable collecting a paycheck. I really
It's
don't
too
want to be
hard.
held accountable.
Too hard.
Yeah, exactly. And then when you have people have to do an assessment as the first step in the hiring process, again, a lot of people are just looking for that easy apply button. And those are, so when you start raising the bar and just to submit an application, again, that starts to repelling those people that you don't need to waste your time with and you don't need to be tempted with, because there's a lot of the people out there who are big talkers and big personality and can say what you want to hear, but actually can't. They can say it, but they can't do it.
Yeah.
And so you got to test to make sure they can do it.
For sure. You mentioned, I think it was point 2 on the 11 universal qualities. Which of those 11 qualities do you think best predict success in leadership roles, and how can leaders test for them?
So on the 11 universal qualities, the way that we score it is if the person passes 7 or more, then they move on. And so if they impress you on what you're looking for on 7 or more, they move on. But again, if they don't impress you on limber or listen, the two that are coded red, then they're out. So, I think it's a combination of them all, but it's about 7 of them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, no, it does. It does. That's good. Now, I'm guessing that these 11 are in your book, the upcoming book, HR Magic, that I mentioned at the beginning. So, when is that book coming out? And is the information that you're talking about here, I'm assuming, is all going to be contained in that upcoming book?
Yeah, yeah. So it is. The book is called HR Magic, and it is coming out in October. And it is a quick read. It is like Who Moved My Cheese for hiring.
Awesome.
So it's a business fable. It's relatable. It's easy to consume. It takes a little over an hour to read, and it is packed with resources and templates and the 5-star employee scorecard so that you can actually get to implementing this ASAP
Okay, awesome. So, when does that come out? In November?
in October.
In October, pardon me, October 2025?
Yes, exactly.
Wonderful. So let's go to another book, All In with Mike McAllowitz. In that book, you outline how leaders can build dream teams who think and act like owners. How can mid-market leaders, do you think, apply those principles when they're scaling fast and under pressure?
Yeah. So if you can remember, so in the book, we talk about FASO, and if you
Yep.
think of FASO as a bridge, and it's fit is F, ability is A, safety is S, and O is ownership. And you need fit, ability, safety, and ownership to get people across the bridge, to get your team across the bridge over that valley of uncertainty, despair, confusion, muddiness, etc. You need to get them through that bridge with fit, ability, safety, ownership, so that they can join you on that other side, so that you can scale and grow. So as the owner, when you're struggling with your team, or an individual, you got to say, are they the right fit? Okay, they're the right fit. Do they have the ability? Is there something that I need to teach them? Do they need to learn something? Do we need to increase their ability levels and such? Okay, we've tried that. That doesn't work. Okay, then they go. Is it something in safety? Safety and ownership can kind of evolve and such. All of these can evolve over time. So someone could be the perfect fit and have the ability, but as you scale and grow, the job now requires this. And they just might not want to level up to where you are now as a growing and scaling company. Oftentimes there's a bit of entitlement, especially with the first employees of a fast growing company. It's like, well, I was here first and I should be VP now that we've got 50 or 75 employees. And well, you started when we were 5 employees, and just because we're at 50 or 75 now doesn't mean that you're entitled to that VP role,
Yeah.
because you don't have experience in a company that is this size and fastly moving to 300 employees and such. So you have to look at a fit, ability. You've got to look at safety. So do they have psychological safety, physical safety, and you also have to look at ownership. So, do they have the ownership that they need to do the job, or do you need to be more specific about the ownership that you have to give them in order to take the ball and run with it? Because if you have 5-star employees, you're not micromanaging them,
Yeah.
because they're able to self-manage themselves, and they have that ownership when they know what the success metrics are.
Yeah, that's it's a simple and effective way to get employees to be successful, I guess, is the simplest way to put it.
But it's leadership. It's really leadership.
Yeah.
And the leader kind of just going back to what's the struggle? Is it fit? Is it ability? Is it safety? Is it ownership? And it's the leader's job to kind of identify that and help pull that person out. I mean, I say I only work 10 hours a week overseeing the operations of my businesses, because I just have to keep a pulse on it. 2 hours a day, hitting up the daily huddles, this, that, the other. Sometimes I do work special projects, or I do, but just by keeping a pulse on things, I'm able to not jump in and do the work, but jump in and identify what is the issue. Do I need to, suggest a new resource to my team? Do I need to, provide more learning opportunities for them to increase their abilities? Is there a hang up for that someone's having, in their personal life that's giving them some issues with feeling safe? And, sometimes personal life can trickle into the business. And so I just have to keep a pulse on everyone and be ready to lead them through that FASO bridge in order to be successful. But I'm not in the business doing the work. I'm being strategic about things, but they're not competing for my time. I can really focus on leading them.
I mean, it's quite a a big statement in the respect that a lot of owner-led companies, a lot of owners would be quite envious of that or think, "How did you do it?" So, what can owners learn from how you built that structure?
Yeah. So, and I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm still a business owner at heart. And so I still feel like I'm working 24/7 because as the visionary, I'm always thinking about the business. I'm always thinking about what are our strategic next moves and this, that, the other. I mean, I start my day. So what doesn't count is I don't work in my businesses. I do spend the rest of my time working on the businesses. So I am starting each morning writing, and getting all this stuff out of my head. And I'm spending at least an hour, but on great days, I'm spending 2 or 3 hours writing. So, I'm not working 10 hours a week and calling it a day and that's it. I am working 40 hours a week, but I'm only working 10 hours sort of in the
In
businesses,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. And then keynote speaking, webinar, and podcast appearances and such, and then working on special projects with my team. So, but I think it's important for leaders to realize that if you're working in the business too much, then you're not going to get the best out of your employees because you're not going to have the time to lead them.
Yeah.
And they're gonna be hesitant to come to you with their struggles because they see that you're harried and that you're too busy for them, and they don't wanna add more pressure or stress on you and such. And so then it just kind of becomes this not productive environment.
And it really speaks to people being super productive for about 4 hours a day. Is there any thoughts that you might have around how mid-market companies can rethink the roles, structures, and productivity with that in mind?
Yeah, absolutely. So, when you go to look at hiring for a role, or you're looking at like restructuring a role, or getting serious about any role in your company or the next hire that you're going to make, actually the first thing that you want to do is you want to map out what the ideal week looks like. Like,
Yeah,
time block the hours of what the week looks like. And they should 70 to 80% of that week should be doing those 3 to 5 key responsibilities,
for
right?
sure.
And then what needs to happen is now you wanna look at that week, and now you see where that productivity is. And now you've got a blueprint for your next
Yeah,
hire of like, here's how you need to be spending your time. And it makes things easy. It's like following a recipe
yeah.
for your new hire. And then what you want to do is you want to take that week, and then you want to kind of like pick out the best of and create that test drive day that you're going to have, where you're going to bring someone in to test drive the role. You could do it in a day. Sometimes people, test drive a potential candidate over the course of a week. You're going to pay that person for that day. You're going to pay that person for that week, but you're going to simulate what a day is like in however long. If you want to we recommend doing about a 5-hour test drive day. And so you're going to want to simulate, you're going to want to test them and see, okay, your job is going to be, as a copywriter, we're going to have a client meeting, and we want you to take some notes. And after the meeting, we want you to, just write the recap for the meeting. And we're going to give you 15 minutes to do it. You might give them a little bit more than you would normally assign for that task, but you want to see like how quickly can they do the work, and they can see what the day is like. You're going to want to throw wrenches in there so that they're not seeing just this immaculately perfect day.
Yeah.
You want to see how they work under pressure, what kind of pressure can come up in the job, et cetera. So that would be the way to get that maximum productivity. With my in-person teams, we have a daily huddle. So in the daily huddle, we start that first thing in the morning, and we start with a celebration, which elevates everyone's state, reminds everyone why we're there. And I'm prepared with the daily celebration, but sometimes someone on the team brings it. And it might be, hey, we just signed a record sales order yesterday. Hey, and then the team goes around and they share. Some people have metrics responsibilities to share for the company, but everyone shares, here's the 3 things I did yesterday, and here are the 3 things I'm going to do today. And we
Yeah.
track it. And
Yeah.
so, it's like if they said something that they were going to do yesterday and they report today that they, didn't get to it, it's like, oh, why? And that's how I keep my pulse on the business. What's
Yeah.
getting stuck? What isn't happening? And how can I come and help, get it unstuck? For my remote teams. So for remote teams, we have what I call a daily vitamin C, SEE. So we get to
Hmm.
see it. So
Hmm.
everyone time blocks their day.
Yeah.
And I see what their time block is, and they run through their time block of, here's what I did yesterday and here's my time block for today. And that ensures the productivity. And again, it helps me keep a pulse on things, because someone might have done something and they miss that, oh, that's actually something that we can push because this is more of the priority. And so
Yeah.
again, that's that leadership of just making sure that we're keeping everything going in a forward fashion. We're maximizing productivity. No one wants to collect a paycheck for doing nothing. And no one wants to have a job where they're procrastinating on doing other things because they don't enjoy what they were hired to do. So when you can get everything aligned and you can be very clear and very specific about things, and you can attract that person that is the ideal fit, that is where the HR magic happens.
What a great way to wrap that up. So where do companies start? So if someone's listening and they have a mediocre team, where do they begin? What's the first step to upgrading to a 5-star culture without blowing up what works?
Yeah, so it's kind of understanding exactly what you need,
Yeah.
because it's not going to fix itself by doing nothing.
Yeah.
So I would start with, and this is what, when we work with people, this is what we have them start with. We have them start with, what are the 3 to 5 key responsibilities and success metrics?
Yeah. Building a scorecard.
Yeah, building the
Yeah.
scorecard, mapping out time blocking the week. Like, okay, you're paying them for 40 hours a week. How do you expect them to work 40 hours a week? If you only want them to work 30 hours a week, okay, that's fine. What should they be doing during those 30 hours? Too often companies hire people and the job isn't worth doesn't have enough to keep them occupied for 40 or 30 hours a week.
Yeah.
And then that idle time just becomes lost and wasted. And I see profit first in your background on your bookshelf, and this is why All In came about, was because Mike and I host the Profit First podcast, realized that a lot of businesses are struggling because their biggest expense on their income statement is their payroll.
Yeah. Most of the
And
time, I reckon.
and your payroll can be killing your profitability and killing your business. If you have people who are not producing a 3.5x return on what you're paying them, then I don't know how much longer you're going to stay in business, because you're struggling, and that those expenses are just seeping out of the business and not going to good use.
So the book that I've got coming out in October is Bigger Isn't Better, Better is Better. It's about the motives and the mindset to build a better business. How would you describe a better business for you and the people that you work with? What do you think a better business looks like?
So I think a better business is where individuals are filling their day doing productive things. You mentioned the 4 hours that people are productive. I believe that when someone's doing something that they love, they're actually productive for 7.5 to 8 hours easily.
Yeah.
Um, and we've sort of accepted this 4 hour of trying to squeeze out 4 hours of productivity, because it takes someone who hates what they're doing and is not really good at what they're doing and who doesn't enjoy what they're doing to muster up enough fortitude and pushing out the procrastination to get a little work done.
Yeah, yeah,
Sorry.
for sure. No, that's a perfect explanation. I love it. What is a book that you would recommend for the audience that isn't one of mine or your books?
Yeah. So You Haven't Taught Until They Have Learned by Sven Nader. And here in the United States, John Wooden is a coaching legend in
Yep.
basketball. Most people think of him as the pyramid structure and this, that, the other. And this is a book by a former athlete of his who won multiple national championships under Wooden. And it mentions nothing about the pyramid. And
Okay.
it really talks about how Coach Wooden was such a legendary leader and how he built just remarkable teams that no one else will be able to replicate in college basketball, at least.
We'll put that in the show notes. You haven't coached until they learned. Sven Nader. We'll put that
Yes.
in there. How can people learn more about you and your business and the work you do?
Sure. Well, you can come to the allincompany.com, starting with THE, theallincompany.com, or visit us at 5-Star Employee Hiring System.
Lovely. Danielle, what haven't we covered off today that you wanted to cover off?
My goodness. I think that if you are interviewing someone and you're taking someone through your hiring gauntlet and you get this weird gut feeling that something doesn't seem right, something seems off, trust your gut.
Yeah, that's good.
Trust your gut and end it right there. That candidate's journey with you stops. Don't make the hire. Because I promise you, if you take a moment right now to think about someone who was maybe a mishire, there was a red flag, there was a gut feeling that you ignored when you interviewed them, but you hired them anyway. And then after you hired them, that red flag manifested and became the problem that has made them the problem employee they are today. So trust your gut is what I would leave you guys with.
What a wonderful way to close. And Danielle, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom today. It's been a pleasure. And yeah, some really great insights into hiring and why hiring is so important. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the episode as much as I did. If you'd be kind enough to leave a review for the podcast, that'd be really helpful to other like-minded entrepreneurs, and then we can grow our community. If you want to find out more about our guests, head over to evolutionpartners.com.au/podcast, where you can find show notes and other additional reading. Hope to see you back next week. Until then, keep thriving.